Happy Tuesday, scholars. Welcome to day 2 of our division review, hence the reason that this lesson is called Division Review Continued. But first, let's get some helpful reminders from some of our good friends. Today, Annie and Moby are going to remind us the proper way to both read and write a division equation. Our practice today is going to be talking a lot about solving division equations. Since yesterday we were practicing really the story problems and getting the correct quotient or the correct answer, we're going to practice a little bit more today of like how to read the division equation. So I thought this little reminder might be helpful. Enjoy watching.
How do you write a division sentence? When you divide, you take a larger group and split it into smaller equal groups. Division is an operation, just like addition, subtraction, and multiplication. Cool! Becca wants to play with us. There are 15 marbles and 3 people. So, how many marbles does each person get? Right, each person gets 5 marbles. We can write a division sentence to show what happened. We started with 15 marbles and divided them into 3 groups. So there are 5 marbles in each group. So 15 divided by 3 is equal to 5. This is the division symbol, and it tells you to divide. When you write a division number sentence, start with the big number first. Cool, more people want to play marbles. We still have the same 15 marbles, but now we need to share them with 5 people. How many marbles will each person get? Right, Moby. Each person gets 3 marbles. So that means 15 divided by 5 is equal to 3. I see a pattern. These division sentences use the same numbers, so they're in the same fact family. I know that 5 times 3 is equal to 15. That's a ton of marbles, Moby. Be careful not to... spill it.
So now that Annie and Moby reminded us how we would actually read or write a division equation, let's talk more about that connection between multiplication and division that we talked about earlier in the year. So I know that division is the opposite operation of multiplication. It's the opposite. So that means I know that I can use multiplication to even help me solve division, but I just might have to use it a little bit differently. The connection that I like to make is how subtraction is the opposite operation of addition. So just like how I can use addition to solve my subtraction equations, I can also be using multiplication to solve my division equations because I know that they have an opposite relationship. Let's talk more about this opposite relationship. When we divide, we split into equal groups. I'm going to make my video bigger just so you can see me do that better. When we divide, we get your hands up with me. When we divide, we split into equal groups. In comparison, when we multiply, we combine equal groups. We add the same equal groups over and over and over again until we get our product. Because we know that we're using equal groups in both division and multiplication, I know that in division, I'm just splitting them so that they're the same amount in each group. In multiplication, I'm adding up those equal groups to get to my total. So really, with division, what we're doing is we're starting with a total, we're breaking it into groups, and we need to find how many go in the group. Or we start with a total, we know how many go in each group, and we need to find how many groups. In multiplication, the part that we need to figure out is the total. So we know the number of groups, we know how many go in each group, but we don't know the total. So really, we can be using those same factors to be finding the total. In multiplication, we can be using those same factors in division to help us find whatever factor we're missing. All right, we don't need my big video anymore. So, like we talked about already, just like we use addition to solve subtraction problems, we use multiplication to solve division problems. See, so cool. It is super cool. All right, let's talk about it. So if you notice this little GIF right now, it starts with a multiplication equation. 7 times 8 equals 56. Well, if I wanted to write the division equation, it'll pop up in a second. If I want to write the division equation, all I do is I move my total, I split it into 7 groups, and it's telling me there's 8 in each group again. So the 56 goes over here for our division equation, the factor moves down, and then the other factor from our multiplication equation is our quotient. Let's watch it one more time. 7 times 8 equals 56. Well, 56 split into 7 groups equals 8. Let's break it down for us a little bit here. So here's the division equation. Get my pointer out. Here's our division equation. We've talked about it yesterday. 12 divided by 4 equals 3. 12 is my total number of things I have. 4 is the amount of groups I'm splitting it into. And 3 is the quotient, or the amount in each group. So let's see how this would look in a multiplication equation. So in my multiplication equation, this factor here, the number of groups I'm splitting it into, simply becomes that first factor. So here, our 4 groups still is in our equation, but it just starts it out. 4, and we know that our next part, times 3. So when we move it to a multiplication equation, our quotient is our other factor, right? So we multiply our number of groups by our quotient, by the amount in each group, and then we get our answer. So what happens when we transfer our division equation into our multiplication equation is this start number in division, it becomes our end number in multiplication, because we know that the amount that we have, we can't really like take away from that or break it. Like what we're doing is just breaking it apart. So it's our end number in multiplication because it's our product, it's our total we end up with. Remember, in division, we're breaking it apart, but in multiplication, we're combining it. So that's why those numbers move right there. So today we're going to practice using our division equations and sort of translating them into multiplication equations to help us solve. Let's get cracking. But first, stop. I'm going to give us our magic word. Some of us got a little bit tricked yesterday and they didn't watch the video, so they didn't put the right magic word in. It's so sad. I know, right? Well, they lost points because of that. How silly. You get points literally just for watching this video. I thought I would make our magic word a little bit fun today, so flash it super quick. Get ready. It is this unicorn. It's got writing all over it, but don't worry, I erased it. It's unicorn. So quick and fast, your magic word today is unicorn. It is unicorn. In case you missed it, it's still unicorn. All right, so let's get started with our lesson for today now that we had all those reminders. So question 1, what does a mathematician call the answer to a division equation? Let's look at those answer choices. I'm going to give you 13 seconds to make up your mind. Is it a product? Is it a quotient? Is it a sum? Is it a difference? You have 6 more seconds. 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's make sure that what I'm about to say is what went through your head. What does a mathematician call the answer to a division equation? All right, the first answer, product. I know that's not my answer choice because that is the answer to a multiplication equation. We call that a product. What about the next answer, a quotient? Ooh, I remember Miss Cupp saying that. Well, we call the answer to a division equation, we call the amount that goes in each group a quotient. So I'm going to check it, but I'm going to check my other answers because I'm a solid mathematician. Sum, is that the answer to a division equation? Yeah, no, that is the answer to an addition equation. We know that. And different. Indifference, excuse me. Is difference the name we give to the answer to a division equation? Yeah, no. Difference is the name that we give to the answer to a subtraction equation. So our correct answer is indeed quotient. Our quotient. our quotient is the answer to a division equation. You're going to have to get used to hearing that word because, as you'll see, we're going to start using it more and more. All right, let's get started with the next question. Use the array strategy to find the quotient of 36 split into 4 groups. So already we're using that vocabulary word quotient. So I'm going to think to myself, I'm going to use the array strategy to find the answer to 34 divided by 6, or 36 divided by 4, or 36 split into 4 groups. So it tells me to use the array strategy. Let's rock and roll on that. Your pencil should be moving as my pencil moves. I forgot to set up my scratch paper, so I'm just going to write that it's April 14th, 2020 at the top. Down the middle, let's rock and roll. So I'm going to remind myself I'm looking at 36 split into 4 groups. I always just write it in words to help me remind myself. If you don't need to, that's totally fine. You don't have to, but hey, it's a good habit to get into. So 36 to, I keep switching this up. 36 divided by 4. Let's rock and roll. Okay, so we're using the array strategy, which means I'm going to draw my 1, 2, 3, 4 rows. Just like you today, I'm not really using graph paper, but that's really not a big deal. We can rock and roll anyway. So if I'm doing 4 rows, that means I know at the bottom of this is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I can just skip count by 4s across the bottom until I get to 36. If you still need to count by 1s to help you get over some numbers, like I know I can do 8, well, 4 plus 8 is 12. Maybe you need to go 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. So you'll notice I'm making 3 little dots because if I had 4 boxes in here, that 4th box would be the number that I'm writing in. 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36. I'm going to draw in my columns to separate these out since this is basically just a big array. Draw my rectangle around it. And then we count how many columns we have. This is the strategy we can use when we don't have graph paper because we can use whatever we're working with at home. So let's see how many columns we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So according to our array strategy, 36 divided by 4 should equal 9. Let's quick double check it with our skip counting strategy by skip counting by 4s 9 times. We can use our 4 skip counting song, which I believe I've linked, but I'll link it again if we need it to. So let's rock and roll. If I said VCP good as gold, let me see your fingers roll. Your hands will come up. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. That is how we roll our 4s. 28, 32, 36. I'm stopping at 36 because that I know is my total. And I'm counting by 4s because it's 36 split into 4 groups. I have 9 fingers up, so I know my answer is 9. If I divide 36 into groups of 4, which is what is represented on my fingers here, I will have 9 groups. So using the array strategy, we got 9. I just double checked it with our finger counting strategy. We know our quotient is still 9. Awesome possum. Now let's rock and roll into using multiplication to solve division equations, since that is the purpose of the lesson today. This next question here, I guess I'm numbering them wrong. So this should be question 2. This is question 3. What multiplication equation could you use to solve 30 divided by 10 equals box? So let's just go ahead and change it into a multiplication equation and then find the answer that matches our work. Let's rock and roll. So I'm going to write 30 divided by 10 equals box. Well, I remember when Miss Cupp was showing us earlier that 30, the first number in our division equation, that's our total, right? In division, we're splitting our total apart. If division is the opposite of multiplication, then I would be combining factors to get to my total. So I know that 30 is going to be the number that is after my equal sign for my multiplication sentence. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to write equals 30 right underneath my division equation. Now I know that this number right here, 10 is one of my factors, it's one of my factors. In my original division equation, I'm dividing 30 into groups of 10. I'm splitting 30 into groups of 10. So if I was going to reverse that into a multiplication equation, I would have 10 groups. Well, I know that if I go like this, that means 10 groups of, and the thing is, I don't know how many groups, or I don't know how many things are gonna be in my group in this case. So I'm just gonna put my box here. So again, what I did was I took my total and I made that into my product, which is, the answer to a multiplication equation. That goes after, that goes after my equal sign, since that's what I would be multiplying up to. Now, since 10 is my factor that I do know, it's the number of groups that I'm splitting 30 into. That's going to go first in my number sentence, because when I read this like a mathematician, I would read 10 groups of something equals 30, which is the exact opposite of 30 split into 10 groups equals some amount in each group. So let's see if there's an answer choice that matches this. Let's check it out. So this right here, some amount, so some groups of 30 equals 10. That doesn't even make sense, right? If I have a group of 30, I already have more than 10. 10 groups of something equals 30. 10 groups of some number equals 30. Yeah, that matches the one that we wrote, right? I'm crossing it off on my work over there, but you guys can be writing stuff like A, cross it out, B. We think that one matches. We go, good mathematicians are always going to continue checking their work. So let's check out C. C says 30 groups of something equals 10. Well, that is similar to the first answer choice, which we talked about doesn't really make sense, because if I have 30 groups, even if I put 1 in there, 30 groups of 1 is still going to be more than 10. So that doesn't super make sense. We're going to cross it out. Over here, we just cross it out like that. Let's go to D. D says some number of groups with 10 in each group equals some number. Okay, I'm sure it does, but that's not going to help me figure out that unknown value in here, right? That's not going to help me solve it. I'm going to cross that out. Our correct answer choice is here. Again, you can kind of think of the division equation to shift it to a multiplication equation. You kind of just take this part, these two parts, you shift it down, and then you move the 30 over. That helps some of my friends from last year. I know it seems a little unfamiliar now, but don't worry, you'll get it. All right, number 4. What multiplication fact can you use to solve 35 divided by 5 equals box equals unknown? So the previous problem, we didn't plug any number in to help us actually solve. We were just looking for the multiplication equation that we could use. In this case, not only are we looking for the multiplication equation we could use, but we're actually looking for the exact one we would use to solve. So my recommendation for a problem like this would be write your reverse equation. So 35 divided by 5 equals box, right? We don't know. If I had 35 things and I split them into 5 groups, we don't know how many would be in each group yet. Let's make the multiplication equation. So I know my total, my start value here. Since division is the opposite of multiplication, what I start with in division, I end with in multiplication. So I'm going to put it at the end. Now, I know that this 5 right here is my known factor. It's the factor I do know. So I'm going to say, and it means groups. So I'm going to say 5 groups of, and then, I don't know what goes in that box yet. That's the factor I don't know. That's my unknown factor. So 5, what I do know, the amount of groups I know I have, 5 groups of something definitely equals 35. It's our job to figure out what goes into that box. My recommendation is count by the factor you do know until you get to 35. In this case, we can count by 5s pretty quick and fast because we're all counting by 5 superstars. So let's count on our fingers by 5s until we get to 35 and then see how many fingers we're holding up. Ready? Go. 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35. I'm holding 7 fingers up. So that means if I count by 5s 7 times, I will get to 35. So 5 times 7 equals 35. I can use that fact. I can use the fact that 5 times 7 equals 35 to figure out what goes in my unknown, what my quotient is, because just like we can move them around, we can move our numbers around. Oh, come on, there we go. We can move that 7 into here because we can think about it as, well, now we know if I split 35 into groups of 5 or into 5 groups, I will have 7 in each group. So let's look at our answer choices. Let's look at A. A says 5 times 6 equals 35. Well, I know that's not true because we just solved that 5 times 7 equals 35, but also I know 5 times 6 equals 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, not 35. So 5 times 6 is not really going to help me solve what 35 split into 5 groups is. It would help me maybe if I was trying to figure out what 30 split into 5 groups was, but not 35. So I'm going to kick it off of Answer Island. I hope it can swim. Look at B. B says 5 times 7 equals 35. I'm thinking ding, 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 ding. Yeah, because that matches the one we already did. Plus, that's true. 5 times 7 equals 35. So if I know I have 5 groups with 7 in each to equal 35, if I want to split 35 into 5 groups, I know 7 will be in each of them because I can use multiplication to solve my division. All right, let's look at C. C says 35 groups of 5 equals 175. That's a big number. I don't have 175 things. I only have 35. My equation only says I have 35. So that can't be an answer choice because that's too many things for me to have. I don't have 175 things to split into groups. I only have 35. So not useful to me. Go ahead and kick that off Answer Island, and then let's check D. Don't have enough room, so I'm just going to draw it over here. 5 times 5 equals 25. Cool, that's true. 5 groups of 5 does equal 25, but that's not really going to help me solve 35 split into 5 groups because that's not enough. It might help me make a good estimate that if I know 5 groups of 5 is only 25, I'm going to need to have more in each of my 5 groups to get to 35, but it doesn't actually help me solve what goes in this box. This fact isn't as useful as the fact that 5 times 7 equals 35 because that multiplication fact, that knowing what 5 times 7 equals, helps me fill in the unknown value here. All right, superstars, we got one more before I'm going to let you try this on your own. Love these types of problems because if I think smarter, not harder, I might actually recognize something cool about where the answer is. So let's think. If 6 times 4 equals 24, or as a good mathematician would read that, if 6 groups of 4 equals 24, then 24 split into 6 groups equals how many in each group? What is the answer to 24 split into 6 groups? All right, pay close attention to what I'm about to say because this is the exact thinking that should happen in your brain when you see a problem like this. So it tells me here 6 times 4 equals 24. It tells me, hey there, 6 groups with 4 objects in each group will equal a total of 24 objects. I'm there. Now I want to know, if I wanted to take those 24 objects and split them into 6 groups, how many would go into each? Well, wait a second. I believe it tells me in the question. Let's see. So I'm going to move to where I have, move my papers so that we can get some room here. All right, so it tells me, like I said before, it tells me that, okay, if you have 6 groups with 4 things in each of them, it equals a total of 24 things. Now we want to know, if I took those 24 things and split them into 6 groups, how many would go in each group? If you're thinking, Ms. Cupp, it's in the question, like I said, you're absolutely right. Yeah, let's think about that. We have 24 divided by 6 equals question mark, right? Or let's go with equals box. using our reverse powers with multiplication and division, like we've been practicing today, I know that what I start with in division, I have to end with in multiplication because they are opposites. They're opposites. And think about what we're doing with multiplication versus division. So I have 24 things. I'm splitting them into 6 equal groups in a division equation. Okay, so in multiplication, I have 6 equal groups of something in each one to equal those 24 objects. Now let's check back to our question. And you might notice, well, it fills in the box for us, right? It says if 6 times 4 equals 24, if 6 times, wait a second, it fills in the box for us. If 6 times 4 equals 24, well, I know 4 must go in this box too. So then I know my quotient for 24 divided by 6, sorry, my dot cam keeps being super silly, then I know that my quotient for 24 divided by 6 has to equal 4. I know we talked about this a little bit before spring break a lot when we were doing our review. Super cool that it's coming back, right? We can always double check by quickly counting by 4s 6 times to see if we get to 24. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24. That is how we roll our fourth. Coincidentally, I have 6 fingers up. 6 groups of 4 does indeed equal 24. Didn't even have to do that math though, because they gave it to us in the answer. We do have an answer choice that is 4. Boom. Remember, friends, think smarter, not harder. Knowing that multiplication and division are opposite operations helps me answer that question in like 30 seconds. I even could check my work in probably under a minute. So cool. Yeah, it's super cool that we can use our math knowledge to help us solve problems more efficiently. All right, my darlings, you know what the magic word from the video is. It is unicorn. So I spelled it for you earlier in the video. I'll spell it for you real quick here. That was your magic word. Thanks for watching. I can't wait to see you guys rock and roll on your independent practice, remembering that division, multiplication, they are opposites, so we can use them to solve. All right, my friends, try those strategies out. I'll see you tomorrow.